Yo, what is going on, Company Gang? It's your boy Company here. First of all, I apologize for not uploading in a while again. Back at it again with another, apology video as an explanation video as to why I haven't been on Discord and YouTube for a long time. But jokes aside, I guess, yeah, the point of this video is to just, let you guys know that I'm doing okay. And, yeah, just give you guys a little bit of like a life update as far as like, what I've been doing and like why I have been online for a long time. And yeah, so as far as like interesting things that have happened to me while I was gone, well, the one there's basically like two things, but one of them being really minor, and I guess that being that I got COVID. So I have like the COVID pregnancy test here. So yeah, I'm thankfully that wasn't really too bad, and obviously, I don't know. It was basically just like the flu, except I got every symptom pretty much except symptoms that like affected my lungs. So I had diarrhea for like 2 days. I had like a sore throat for 2 days. I had a fever for 2 days, but it basically lasted for like a week. I lost my sense of taste. I think that was probably like the worst part of it, because food is like one of my biggest copes, and it got to the point where like I would eat like, I don't know, like fried chicken or like, I don't know, instant noodles, and the only thing it would taste like is bitter, and the only thing I could really taste aside from bitter things was sweet things. So I ended up having to go on like a diet of like, I don't know, like candy and like ice cream, which I guess sounds kind of good, but I don't really like eating sweet stuff. Like I'm more of like a savory type of person. So that's as bad as it got for me, and then my sense of taste kind of just came back after like a week and a half. So that's that. So that's like a minor thing that happened to me, and kind of made me like wonder like why this is such like a big deal in the first place. But I'm not going to get into that because I think it's like old news by now, like whatever, like yeah, it's cancer, like the politics and shit. But so like for the major thing that happened to me was that like probably maybe like a few weeks after that, I basically fucked myself pretty badly, and specifically I like destroyed my my wrist, basically through no one else's fault but my own. And this basically happened during a MMA class, because I'm not sure if I like mentioned in a video previously or if I only talked about it on Discord, but I was basically like training like mixed martial arts with my cousin, because I guess he wanted to like get into it, and he invited me to come along. So I ended up doing that, and at that point in time I was like going like somewhat regularly, like 4 days a week. And during one of the classes, I ended up spraining my wrist, and this happened probably for many reasons. The first being that I think one of the instructors, kind of gave me shit for not punching hard enough. And the reason for this was that, well, I guess, it's kind of like hitting other people is kind of like one of those things that you're conditioned not to do, especially in my case, because as like a kid, apparently I used to be like quite the little shit. And I got into like a lot of like, like stupid like kiddie fights on the playground. And it got to the point where like I almost got suspended from fucking kindergarten. So like yeah, so my parents got like really strict about it. Teachers got like really strict about it, and they were like I don't know, I kind of remember them being like all serious and shit. And I don't know, it was just like I think at the time I was like really scared, and the exact like opposite happened, where I just became really afraid of like confronting people and hitting people, which I guess is obviously a good thing, but the side effect is that now like I'm like too afraid to like, I guess like hit people. It's like it was like conditioned out of me. And then also there's the fact that yeah, he like kind of like gave me shit for it. So because of that, I don't know, he was like telling me how like I was holding like I was holding people back in training. So like it kind of made me feel bad, and I kind of didn't want to like be a burden on other people. So I was like trying to like I don't know, like teach myself to not be afraid of hitting people hard. And you know, that's an important thing in like kickboxing, because it's like a huge part of like kickboxing training is to like condition your partner and yourself to like firstly like be able to like brace properly for punches, and to be able to like tolerate pain. And also like you sort of need like that sense of urgency from like being afraid of being hit in the face in order to like flip punches and like duck and like parry and block stuff. Because if you don't have that, then it's kind of like half-assed almost, and there's like no pressure to really like do the training properly. So yeah, so while I was doing like pad work with this instructor, he was like telling me during like the last punch of this like drill to like put power into it, like basically like punch as hard as I can. Or he didn't say that exactly, but that's kind of what I took it to mean. So like I basically like threw this punch with everything I had. And you know, also another thing that feeds into this is that, you know, the one thing they tell you to always do is to like wrap your hands, but I'm like a really lazy person. And I feel like I wasn't even wrapping my hands correctly in the first place. So I decided to like, for quite a while, to just like skip wrapping my hands, which is like a huge mistake. And then there's also the fact that like when I throw punches, especially like power punches, I almost like to like curl my wrist a little bit like this as I'm about to hit the pad and like flick it up, because I find that that just like adds like that little bit extra bit of force. Because I think like when you throw a punch, it's one of those things where like every little movement is almost like multiplicative in a way. Like it's not like additive where I don't know, you do something and like the force adds. It's more like when you like each tiny little bit of motion will like multiply like the force by like a certain amount. So it's like I like to like curl my wrists, but like I guess during pad work the instructor would like bring the pad forward as a way of like providing resistance to the puncher, which is me. But because when I used to practice like hitting hard, it was normally like a standing like heavy bag, and it was basically like a stationary object. But because the pad was going forward, it caught my wrist as it was bending, and I didn't have time to like flick it upwards. So instead, I wasn't anticipating this, so I ended up just putting all my weight into the punch, and I don't know. Yeah, I put all my weight into it, and I don't know, maybe this is just, you know, my ego talking, you know, trying to have some like, you know, silver lining, and you know, maybe, I don't know, like remember, you know, like kind of like just make myself feel better about the fact that like I fucked my wrist throwing a punch. Because as you guys can tell, I am like a massive like wrist cell. Like my wrists are really skinny, so that obviously is like a huge factor. But I would like to think that I hit kind of hard, which is why I hurt my wrist. But like anyways, yeah, I hit him pretty hard. I hit him hard enough to like where he like staggered back like a few steps. But at the same time, like my wrist was like bent while doing this. So basically, as I landed the punch, my wrist got hyperextended like really far this way, like downwards, and obviously that fucked it up. But I didn't really like feel anything because of like all the adrenaline from the practice, like because it was basically like a nonstop workout. So I went through like 20 more minutes of like training, and there was still like a lot more punching that I did, and also checking other people's kicks and like helping people do pad work with kicks. So which kind of feels like someone's like swinging a baseball bat into your forearm almost, especially with like some of like the bigger like people who kick. Like it kind of feels like it actually like hurts a lot even when we have pads. But yeah, so basically my wrist was probably already injured at that point, but I was continually like beating on it, and also like having it get like beat on. kind of like beating my meat almost. Okay, that's I apologize for that. I don't know, like yeah. Anyways, that's stupid. So anyways, I didn't really notice anything. I went home and I drove home normally, but the afterward, like a little bit after I got home, I started to notice that something was like a little bit off with my wrist, and I kind of ignored it. It started to get like more and more sore and like kind of like tight, and I thought it would just like go away by the next day. But when I woke up the next day, I noticed that I basically couldn't like move my wrist, like the range of motion was all like fucked up, where like I couldn't like twist it at all, and I could like barely bend it forward or backwards without it feeling like really stiff, or like feeling like that if I forced it then it would probably like cause pain or something. So yeah, my hand was like probably sprained at that point. But this isn't really where it like went wrong. I think where it really went wrong was basically a week passed by, and my hand was starting to get better, but I was getting a little bit impatient. I didn't want to like miss out on the training, because at that point I think I'd gone like maybe 3 weeks straight of pretty much almost going like every day of the week, and I didn't want to like interrupt that. I was kind of like impatient to get back into the training. So yeah, I was like moving it around and shit, and then I was reading stuff online about like doctors like riding, I don't know if that's like the right term, but like riding like injuries where like they like manually like adjust like a dislocated bone or something. And then my dumb ass like there was like at the time there was like this bump on my wrist. Like you can still kind of see like a little bit of like red swelling like over there, but it's not as bad anymore. But yeah, there was like a tiny bump, like a kind of like a bump like this big, and like maybe like half a centimeter protruding outwards. And I thought, my dumb ass like put two and two together, but came up with like, I don't know, like 7, like completely wrong answer. Like you guys can probably see where this is going. Like basically I tried, I think I'm kind of like outing myself as like a massive retard at this point, but I thought it would be a good idea to like try and like, just try and like pop it in. So I ended up like, basically, sorry, let me just adjust this. Like basically like putting my thumb like this and like pushing like the little lump like into my wrist, and then like tying it up with like a really tight like bandage. And at first I thought it didn't really hurt at first, and I thought it was working, but then eventually I'd move my hand and it kind of felt like it would almost like slip out. So then the lump would come back. So I got paranoid and I started pushing it back again, and then I basically did this for like entire day, where I would just keep mashing like my fucking like bone into my wrist like a fucking complete like low IQ, it's completely like low IQ like behavior, like just retardedness. And thinking back on it, like what I was actually doing was not like push my bone like back in place at all. Instead, what I was probably doing was like mashing my bone into like my ligaments, and like stretching and like probably like micro tearing a lot of like the tendons and like ligaments and like the muscle in that area. So I pretty much tried this for like 12 hours straight, until eventually I just kind of gave up towards night. And I thought I would just like sleep it off, and by this time it was I could tell that it was starting to get like irritated. But I thought I would just like sleep it off and it would just be back to normal. But when I woke up the next day, like my wrist, like this area of my wrist had basically swollen to like like I'm laughing about it now, but I think that's all I can do at this point, because I did not have a good time. Like I woke up and it was basically the size of maybe like a third of a golf ball, which doesn't seem like a lot, especially to like someone who's like broken their arm. And I'm sure this isn't as bad as like breaking your arm or like dislocating like blowing out your knee or something, like tearing your ACL. But like it was like the size of like a golf ball, like a third of a golf ball, and like maybe sticking like a centimeter out. And it was like really red, and like really like almost like a reddish blue in it, like a reddish blue. And I I looked at it and I was like, holy fuck, like this probably isn't like good. But you know, I didn't really feel anything at first. But then maybe like 30 minutes after waking up, I like reached for something, and then at that point in time, I think I probably like felt like probably some of the worst pain in my life. And you know, obviously, you know, like keep this with a grain of, like take this with a grain of salt, because you know, as a kid, I was never really very athletic or like, I don't know, an active person. So I never skateboarded, I never did any sports or like wrestling or whatever like bullshit that gets you hurt. So because of that, I really had no like I had like no experience with like serious injuries. But yeah, so, and to me, I guess subjectively, like I've never been stabbed by a knife, but if, you know, if I ever did, then I imagine that's what it would probably feel like. Like basically, like for lack of like a better like term, I basically like I raped my own wrist. Like I completely just like wore like a 14-inch long 6.9 inch in girth like strap on, and like cut like a slit in my wrist and just raped it. Like that's pretty much what it felt like, because after that, like any single time I would like move my wrist past like a neutral straight position, even like just this much, I would feel like just this really sharp stabbing pain, intense stabbing pain, almost like a jolting pain. And it was like, it was to the extent where like if I was like doing something like and not paying attention, and like I'd move my hand by accident, then it almost like take my breath away. It kind of felt like I was like being like punched in the stomach almost, like not literally, but like that's how bad the pain was. And you know, at first I tried to like ignore it, but then at some point I realized that if I kept doing this, then I'd probably only like aggravate the injury more and more. So as a result, I ended up you know, putting on like this like wrist brace thing. Well, at first I had this later, but I had like another like cheaper one that didn't really work, so I like wrapped it around, and and basically I was forced to like basically keep my hand like at like a neutral position like a robot, and I basically became like extremely paranoid of moving it. And this pretty much grounded my life to a halt, because first of all, you know, the pain was like just like intolerable. Like even like it basically made it impossible for me to enjoy anything, because like I was like always anxious of like aggravating it, and you know, like feeling that like really sharp stabbing pain. And even when I wasn't moving it, even just like resting my arm in like certain positions, I would always feel this like really like gradual buildup of soreness and like like gnawing, like sharp like throbbing pain. And I would also feel like electric like burning and like tingling feelings like shooting up my forearm, and like radiating like around the wrist area, and like kind of like icy, like I don't know, it kind of like feels like you're being both like sticking your hand in like ice water, but also like burning at the same time. Like it was like a really weird feeling, but I think it's probably from like maybe me like maybe damaging nerves, or like maybe like the swelling from the injury pressing up against some of like the nerves in that area. So yeah, like it just made it like impossible to enjoy anything, because I was just in constant pain. And even things like watching anime, like I'd constantly have to like readjust my arm, and it just became like a huge hassle. So that really just like detracted from everything. And not only that, but because like it was my right hand that was hurt, which is my dominant hand, it kind of made me realize like just how important your hands are, because well, it kind of almost felt like I really couldn't do anything. Like things that you normally take for granted, like brushing your teeth, washing your hair, putting on clothes, driving, even playing games, like Like, for example, like pretty much no game, you pretty much can't play any games with the use of one hand, or at least any game that is like remotely interesting apart from maybe like fucking like, I don't know, like Pong, or like really like basic like games that, yeah. So yeah, I couldn't do anything. So because of that, yeah, I was just bored all the time. Even, and like I said before, like just watching stuff or watching like YouTube or anime was also like almost like just barely tolerable because of like the constant pain. And I think the worst part was like sleep, because every time I would go to sleep, it would take me like maybe like an hour or two just to settle in, because I was constantly like trying to find ways to like readjust my arm and make it feel comfortable. And eventually when this happened, just as I was about to sleep, like my hand would naturally relax, because I was constantly like keeping it stiff and like straight like this. But as I was falling asleep, it would like bend forward, and like once it did this, I would feel like that same like just jolting pain that would just like wake me up. And then this would happen over and over again. So it probably like took me 3 to 4 hours a night just to like try just to lie in bed and finally fall asleep. And I'd only ever fall asleep when I was like too tired to stay awake, and eventually would just like pass out. And even when I did fall asleep, I would wake up like 2 to 3 hours later. I'm not sure why, but I could only sleep for like 2 to 3 hours, sometimes even like maybe just 30 minutes. And then I'd wake up, and then it was impossible for me to fall asleep anymore, because now the pain was there and I'd have to like readjust over and over again. So I spent like a good 2 weeks with like barely getting any sleep, probably getting on average like an hour of sleep every day. And like because of all this, I just became really, really depressed and frustrated. Like at the peak of it, like at like the peak of the pain, you know, I was I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll just say like I fucking like cried. Like I literally like I know it's kind of like pathetic, but yeah, like I literally like laid in bed and fucking cried because I was like, fuck this. Like, and also like, yeah, like keep in mind that like I'm generally like a pretty like neurotic person. I feel like I'm maybe like a little bit better at hiding it than other people, but you know, like in my head, you know, I had all these thoughts of like, my life is fucking over. I'm never going to be able to use my right hand again normally. And that I was going to have this pain, this fucking like intense pain for like the rest of my life, because for like 2 weeks, it was just like really agonizing. And it just didn't seem to like get better at all. In fact, it seemed to be like getting worse and worse. And so my mind was being filled with all these like negative thoughts, you know, obviously false thoughts, like self-created thoughts that, you know, my hand was fucked for life and my life is going to be like this level of suffering forever. So because of that, I just got really depressed and obviously like unmotivated to do anything. Like the only thing I could really do was just put on like earphones and just pace back and forth around my basement listening to music or like podcasts. But obviously that got boring after a while. And then so yeah, I basically like barely did anything that entire time. And I was probably like, it was probably like some of like the worst time in my life, which I guess just goes to show you how sheltered I am, because there are people who have like broken shit and have like not reacted like the same extent that I did. But maybe because like I'm so sheltered, I probably like blew it up in my mind to like way more than it actually was. Although I think the big thing was that like even when I fractured my vertebrae in the past, it didn't feel this bad. And also the big thing was that I could still like do stuff. Like I could still play video games because I could use my hands. But with like the hand injury, like I just couldn't do anything. And I think that was the worst part about it, was that I was just bored out of my mind, and the pain prevented me from, you know, consuming media properly, because I was just hyper vigilant and like constantly like focusing on the injury and avoiding like aggravating it. So it was just nonstop. And by the third week, it was still there, but I was starting to notice like a little bit of improvement. And another bad thing about this was that like I'm probably about to like out myself as a schizo, but for some reason I started to notice that like my left wrist was developing like similar symptoms as my right wrist, although not to like the same extent, but I was starting to notice that it was getting like sensitive and like sore and achy. And I'm not sure if it's because like I'm not used to like using my left hand, so it got like overstrained almost from like the constant use, because I normally never use this hand. Obviously this is like the main hand that I used to beat my meat, and okay, sorry about that. It's like, but like yeah, like I'm like right-handed, so it's either that my left hand got overstrained, but the thing is like I don't feel like I really used it to like lift anything heavy at all. So I looked it up online, and I was also like developing like pain in other parts of like my body as well. Like my knees started to become like really stiff, and maybe that's because of like the constant pacing back and forth, or because I was just when I wasn't doing that, I was just like sitting down in a position and just like, I don't know, like lying in bed. So I was like really like inactive. So it could be that, or it could be the fact that like when I like researched online, I came across like chronic pain syndrome, where like people who often get injuries, like not only does the pain persist even after like the injury has healed, but like the pain actually tends to spread to other parts of their body, even ones that haven't been injured. So I don't know, like this kind of like goes back to this like idea in my head that, or thing that I learned in like social psychology, where like East Asians, or like people who belong to like collectivist cultures, apparently experience like mental illness differently, where like, for example, a Westerner would have suicidal thoughts and anhedonia and all this like psychological shit whenever they're depressed. Meanwhile, East Asians, they instead tend to experience like mysterious bodily aches and pains and like bowel movement problems and like stuff like that instead of that. So I wonder if this is like my version of like schizophrenia or something. But okay, maybe, like, I don't know, like I definitely felt pretty crazy because I was developing pain, like minor pain, but it was still pain like throughout the rest of my body, and I was like really becoming like almost like afraid to move my body, as like pathetic as that sounds. And like I don't know, like I fucking eventually got to the point where like I was so fed up with it that I kind of just eventually came to the realization that aside from like the injury in my wrist, like the rest of it was probably like all in my head almost. So I guess started to like did my best to ignore it. And obviously I was suffering for quite a bit, and eventually like 2 months passed by, and finally like the symptoms started to like slowly get better. And I also managed to get an MRI scheduled and did that. And eventually that was like maybe 2.5 months after I got injured, and by that time I got the results back, and they basically said that the injury had mostly healed, and the only thing that was really there was like a bit of fluid in the wrist, and maybe like a ganglion cyst. I don't really know what that is, but like I think it's like an entanglement of like muscle fibers or something. Like, I don't really know exactly what it is, but that formed there. But otherwise, they said that like there seemed to be like evidence that like there was like sign of injury, but that it was mostly healed by now. So just knowing that kind of gave me like that much more peace of mind, and it kind of helped me psychologically in a way where I wasn't as afraid anymore, because I always had this kind of like anxiety that the injury would never get better. But like that gave me peace of mind. And eventually time passed, and now I'm at where I am, where you know, I'm basically back to normal. I still can't like put weight on it while like doing push-ups and stuff, and I still can't like probably punch with it, but just the fact that I can move it around and not have to like worry about like feeling like I'm getting stabbed in the wrist has definitely been a good thing. And, you know, as the injury got better and better, you know, I started to like get back to my normal self. And I started like watching anime again, which is great. And since that was like pretty much the only thing I could do, I just ended up doing that a lot. But you know, basically this injury, which like I don't want this to be some like sob story, because obviously like this is kind of like mostly my fault, because I was like just doing stupid shit, obviously like lesson learned and stuff. But I guess I fucked myself basically. And and it, you know, it stopped me from helping my aunt out with like stuff, so I basically have no income. And what else? So my life was just really boring, and I guess that is why like I couldn't really do anything, including like shooting like YouTube videos, because just using a mouse or like a keyboard or like holding my phone up to record was just a massive like chore and like just painful. So I avoided doing all that, which is why I wasn't on YouTube for a while. And but now like my hand's a lot better, which is why I'm uploading this and I'm like more social. But yeah, like I think like, I don't know, like I guess the one thing about like injuries like this is that it's like it's kind of hard to talk to about it. It's kind of hard to talk about it with people, because it's almost as like when you're in pain like that, be it like emotional or like mental illness or like physical pain from an injury, it's like almost like it feels like nobody can understand you, and it almost feels like people think you're exaggerating it a little bit, which I don't know that that's the case. Like I don't like as far as like you like blowing up the pain in your head or the suffering, maybe that's the case, but subjectively speaking, it definitely felt bad enough where like it felt like I couldn't really do anything. And it kind of felt like I couldn't really talk to anybody about it. And, you know, which is fair, I guess, because that's not really something, you know, people want to talk about in the first place. But yeah, I kind of felt like really lonely, as pathetic as it sounds. And again, this has to do with me like being extremely sheltered and not like breaking my arm when I was like a kid. So like I don't really have that much experience with like serious like wrist sprains. But honestly, if I could choose between like fracturing my vertebrae and like the wrist sprain, I would definitely choose like the vertebrae, because at least I could like do shit back then. As bad as it seemed back then, it was definitely like nowhere near as like a pain in the ass of an injury than this one. I think that's that. And that's why I couldn't, that's probably why I was like depressed and like couldn't do like shit. So and that's like the main thing that happened basically. And I'm trying to think of other things to talk about, but I can't really think of anything at this time, so I'm probably gonna end the video now. And I apologize. This is probably like not what people want to hear, but I don't know, like I don't really know what to talk about at this moment. But I'll probably like try and brainstorm some like new video topics soon, so I can get back into like my usual like, I don't know, like routine of like talking about NEET stuff, and hopefully finally keep that more consistent. And again, I don't really want this to be some like sob story thing, but yeah, I guess like this is just what happened to me and like why I was like gone for so long, basically because I fucking just I gesture maxed and fucking like destroyed my wrist through my own fault. So yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. I kind of didn't want to tell this story because like it just kind of like exposes me for being like a clown because yeah, like, I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea to like manually adjust my wrist like that. When it was, if anything, it was probably just swelling and not even like dislocation. But because I saw the bump, that's why I thought that. But yeah, anyways, I'm rambling at this point. I'm gonna end the video. So this is Company NEET signing out, and peace.